Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger and my friends. The 2XKO early access patch just came out and it's basically the first big patch for the game. And there's a fair amount to cover both system mechanics wise and character wise. As we got some changes here for the cast, some buffs, some nerfs, some not as a big deal, some really strong quality of life, and of course we're just going to go over everything. A thing to note about this patch in particular is that it's sort of in two waves. Some of this patch actually has already been live for a couple days, and the rest dropped with this patch, but we'll cover it all just for completion's sake. And that said, let's start with some of the more general aspects of the patch. So just for some universal stuff here first, there was an option to select where you could do retreating guard, you know, just hit back and light medium together, right? You can do that while just holding down back, and you can no longer do that. Simple as, right? The whole weakness of retreating guard is you cannot block low while doing it, and so you got to stand up to even attempt it to begin with. So now if you try it and you get bopped, right? No just mashing it through and also being crouch blocking while attempting to mash it. Fair enough. Another universal change is when you block in the air, you're now allowed, after block stun is over, to take an air action. Before, you couldn't. So say in this scenario here, Blitz can do the thing on a block, but it's going to bring me to him, right? Now, I can do an air action on my way to him, so it's not just guaranteed I gotta accept whatever's coming my way. And of course, this is a lot of situations. It's generally only going to matter in situations where you block very high up in the air. Most of the time, you'll land when you block, regardless. Like, nothing will actually happen, so you got to be pretty high up for this to even be a thing. But in those situations, now it is a thing. A lot of other things, like breaks have been pretty contentious, so there's now less advantage after a break, because the idea of the combo breaker also giving you a lot of offense. Admittedly, you know, that should be a purely defensive tool, so I think that's very fair. Now, there's some changes to how assist timers work. So now, when you call your assist, they do their little taunt and they peace out. Your assist timer begins immediately thereafter on the recovery. Before, it would take a little bit before the actual recovery would start. Now it's basically instantaneous. At bare minimum for combos, the second they leave the screen is when your launch tag will work. Before, it did not work that way. So actually, this should, on top of you being able to just, you know, spam assists more, give you access to potentially new combo routing. Now, there's been some changes to meter, and this is a pretty big change overall. So one of the things, once the game went into closed beta and now we're in early access, is you always start with meter, right? Compared to older builds of the game, which I think is a good thing for the game. But you built meter a little too quick, right? And since you already started with meter, that made things like double down extra strong. And double down has a change, we'll get to it. But there's been nerfs to overall meter gain. So here, you can see an older version here before the patch. This was the limit break, and doing limit break gave you a meter buff. And that's good, but now that's changed a bit. So same thing here. You can see here, you still get meter for doing the limit break, but not as much meter as before. So it's still worth doing. It's not like a bad thing, but it doesn't give you as a titanic amount of meter as before. And now, another big one is they changed how combos work in gaining meter. Now, for this, there's some math involved here, but basically the longer your combo goes, the less and less and less meter you'll get. Because even though they keep working to address it, combos can still be pretty friggin' long in this game. But yeah, so now, and we have some math here. So basically, at 8 seconds, you now get 80% of your normal versus 100% normal. At 11 seconds, you now gain half of what you normally would. And at 16 seconds, you now gain 10% of what you normally would. So I took, you know, the wherewithal before this went live here. Here's a basic Illaoi bread and butter combo. Nothing too fancy, not like breaking the upper limits of combo scalability or whatever. And here's what it is beforehand, right? And now here's the same combo after this patch. So as you can see here, with this is more of a generic combo, right? Once again, it's not upper limit combo. It won't affect it too much. But if you're going a little longer than this, then your combo generation, or your meter generation from the combo rather, is going to be scaled down to next to nothing. So most normal combos, it's a slight reduction. For some of the more obscene combos in the game, it's going to be a pretty major reduction. Now, another thing that's been hit pretty hard is gaining meter after you've already spent meter. thanks to how the game works, there's plenty of opportunities to keep comboing after you do a super, right? So now, if you keep comboing after you do a super, then that meter that you would have gained is decreased by 75%. And keep in mind, this goes away as soon as the combo's over. So just to give an example here, like Illaoi, she does her Rekka, and like, oh, I got my Rekka, I can like tag in and do a super. I'll just show you an example. So the combo still works, right? But notice I barely got any meter for doing it. So just keep in mind some of the combo routing you've had. If you're doing supers early on in the combo, just keep in mind you're going to get barely any meter for doing them. So not to say don't do them if they still work, right? Because there's still value in certain combos regardless, but they will have their meter curtailed a bit. And now some fuse stuff real quick here, because some fuses have changed in the patch. So one, when you use double down or 2x assist, in any way you can force your assist to cool down, they will now cool down longer. It used to be the 2-second cooldown before. And if you just do the regular assist call and nothing else, it'll still be the regular 2-second cooldown. You can see here I'm in 2x assist, right? So if I use the assist once, nothing else, 2-second cooldown. However, if I use it twice, and then they do their thing and peace out, then it's a 4-second cooldown. So for 2x assist and double down, the cooldown's a bit longer. They found that these fuses are a bit too strong, and fair enough. So if you do the thing that makes them go, then you're going to suffer just a little bit more cooldown than you otherwise would have before. And once again, I think perfectly fair enough. Also for sidekick and double down, if you do tag supers, they'll now just scale a little bit harder than they did before, which, again, fair enough. It's only 10% more than they did before, but still. And for Juggernaut. So Juggernaut will still start with Fury. That's perfectly fine, but it will not start with full Fury. So when the round starts, it starts like everyone else. You start with partially filled bar. Because there's too many situations where, like, especially with Blitzcrank, you could just get the first hit dead character round 1 start, right? So you do not start with full Fury out of the gate. And also Fury does not reset between rounds anymore as well, just like the other fuses. Now on to character specifics. For Ahri, first of all, there's a lot of things that say, you know, hitbox, height change, all that. It's all to make your combos more consistent, basically. But before we get to that, there's a couple things to note that are, I would say, slight nerfs. So stand M for one. So stand M is a button that got a hitbox buffed, right? So it's going to help with combo consistency. But it's also now a frame slower. So it starts in 10 frames versus 9. Besides the fact that number, bigger, slower startup is a nerf on paper regardless, this actually does have a real in-game consequence. If you do her cross-up, right? And if you do like instant air dash cross-up at like the lowest possible height, it will always be +9. Which means at 10 frames now, stand medium will not connect if you do this at lowest possible height. Which means you cannot go into a guaranteed combo route you could have gone to before. If you say do it deeper, like you wait longer than, you know, as fast as possible, then yes, the number will be different. But if you do everything basically as fast as possible, it's going to be +9. So you cannot go right into medium afterwards. You will have to do a jab instead. So keep that in mind. That's mildly significant. Other thing too, Spirit Rush. So Spirit Rush, you can like go multiple directions, sure, right? You cannot go multiple directions, multiple angles on whiff anymore. So if you want to go for like the secondary direction, you have to actually connect the move. Otherwise, you'll just do another air special or another air normal or whatever, which isn't necessarily bad, but you cannot use it as like a runaway tool now, basically. Stand Heavy has 1 less frame of block stun, but Stand Heavy in S2 is still true block string, so it doesn't affect that. And also her S2 super does slightly less damage, to the point where it doesn't really bear going into. Okay, but now let's talk the buffs here. So we talked about like hitbox stuff, right? So stand medium, crouch medium. The hitboxes have been increased upwards. It's almost imperceptible just by looking at them, but they're there. Same thing with stand heavy. The height of the hitbox has been increased. And basically, there's just a lot of stuff with their various moves where like there's hitbox or alignment adjustments, and it all leads to her basic combo structure just being easier to do. Like, on paper, she should have been one of the easier characters in the game, as she's like stock versus character. But her combo routing was abnormally difficult in a way it shouldn't have been, and now it isn't. And there you go. That's an idea, right? Not necessarily it's the most optimal, but basically anything that involves like getting the opponent airborne, then going for like the dash and the refloat, because these now hit higher up in the air, they're less likely to drop in those critical situations. So it'll just make combo structure a lot easier across the board for the character. So some small nerfs, but the quality of life buffs cannot be understated, because what should have been an easy character wound up being a little more difficult than she should have been, because her combo structure just got weird and hard, and now it's a lot easier. So Blitz has one, I think, substantial buff, some good quality of life, and just some minor bug fixes. Quality of life first here. If you do grab and you just hold the button, it'll just automatically do the follow-up, versus like you can manually do it. Now hold it or manually do it. Either way, you get the follow-up. So that's nice. Now, it's good on paper. The Kara command grab distance has been increased. I did record a few examples of this in situations I thought it might hit now where it didn't before, and none of those work. So whatever the range increase is, it's very slight, but I'll take their word for it that any increase is definitely a buff. So if you're just looking to grab people, then there you go. And then speaking of the grab, he did get one substantial buff. So when you're in the corner, you could always do his S2 super and just like scoop them off the ground. That was really good. But if you wanted to do that full screen, your only real option was you had to have your steam up, and then you had to do like the enhanced version where you held the button, just scoop them off. Now, specifically, if you happen to have your steam up and you hit the steam powered version of the command grab, they're just a little bit closer than they were before. And that means mid-screen, no gimmicks needed, no nothing needed. You can land the S2 super after the fact, which is really, really good. At bare minimum, it makes that grab, getting hit by the grab, extra scary. Like, you really, really, really don't want to get hit by it, because now you're going to be losing a lot of life. And that means in things like double down or sidekick, right? Damage is potentially like exponentially going to go up, because you can land even more hits than you otherwise could before. And of course, double down being double down, it'll let you get just even a little bit more cheeky at getting things like you really couldn't before. So that grab is getting extra scary is what I'm saying, right? That's a pretty significant buff for Blitz. Other than that, just once again, a lot of bug fixes. The patch notes will be linked in the video description if you want to check it out. But thumbs up for Blitz. It's not a lot of changes, but that change matters. Now, Braum has a decent amount of buffs going for him. If you had to pick a worst character so far, it was probably him. Not that he's unplayable, but, you know, compared to like Ekko or Yasuo, like, he was obviously coming up a bit short despite being so big. So some of the buffs he's getting are stuff to his shield. So the shield, and this is both the move and as the assist, the shield is now quite a bit extended further upwards, the part that'll actually catch people. And you can see here, we got a little bit of a visual example. That's a decent amount. Other things like his light and his medium have both had their hitboxes extended upwards a little bit here. And we have a visual example. That's a lot more difficult. It's a little more imperceptible. I'll take their word for it, right? That it's definitely better, but in-game better. We'll see how it goes. Small buff, but charged Protoss now counts as off the ground okay. So it can bot people who are on the ground just like the regular close version can. So that's nice. But now let me give you two changes that are significant. I have footage here, but it doesn't really bear showing just because it's apparent in of itself. Stand Heavy now hits from round start. So it got a pretty significant range boost. Before, it would not. That and down S2 also hits from round start. So these two moves have a pretty significant range buff to them. It was a bit weird that, given that he's the biggest character in the game, he would get outranged on normals by quite a few other characters. So now Stand Heavy and down S2 have a lot more range to compensate. It moves him forward for both a lot further than it did before. So Braum, like, it's not that he had bad range, but he should have been outranging Darius at least. Now he will outrange Darius on normals. And there's other things like damage buffs here. Forward heavy charge now does 150. So it used to do 130. So landing one of these would be where some of your bigger combo structure would come from, especially because, you know, that's a move that is armored if you happen to have your buff live, right? And it's not insubstantial damage. And now it'll just do more, especially because it's almost always going to be the first hit you do, the full charge version. So it's just more damage in the combo, period. That's great. Speaking of more damage, down S2, if it hits off the ground, it now does 80 damage unscaled. In this situation, it'd be scaled, right? So now if it hits OTG, like the main reason to use it to hit OTG was the fact that it gave you the buff, right? And now it'll give you the buff and a lot more damage on top of that. So that's nice. And the follow-up to S2 here will do more damage now if it happens to hit an assist, or if you tag out right as Braum is about to hit. So in those situations, it also just does more damage. So in comparison to maybe Ekko or Yasuo, Braum's still not going to be on their level, but he has good quality of life buffs. The fact that especially stand heavy and down S2 just have a huge range buff to him, that helps a lot. Like he will now consistently outrange characters he should have outranged to begin with, right? With gigantic dominant normals, which is supposed to be the idea. And the fact that he just kind of does more damage on stuff he's going to do anyways, which is always nice. Darius, they are apparently just happy with him. And fair enough, he's kind of like the game's really strong just all-rounder. The only real changes besides bug fixes are his backdash speed is 10% faster. So that is better. And in situations where you have the bleed effect up, his normals specifically do ever so slightly more bleed damage. And that is it. So there's nothing more to say, I suppose. Ekko. So Ekko definitely got some nerfs. A lot of like, you know, little tiny fixes, bug fixes as well. Stuff like his assist, specifically the forward assist now has a bigger hurt box, so it'll be ideally easier to jab him out of it if you have the opportunity. But the big ones are on Time Winder. That's his projectile. So if you do the air projectile, it now takes him longer to land and like be able to move again. Specifically, his recovery is now increased by 4 frames on average. Now here you're seeing the older build. Recovery is a tricky thing because it also depends on like where you landed, like from your height. I usually got about 14 there. Here on the current build, once again, it kind of depends where you are. Like it's 18 there, it's 18 again. If we're a little lower, it could be 17. Like it really depends on exactly where you landed. But yeah, I guess on average, it could be +1, -1, but it's about 4, yeah. The grounded version got hit harder. So here we are on the older build. And grounded Time Winder has 41 frames of recovery. Here on the current build, Time Winder has 47, so 6 more frames of recovery. And yes, this does affect the block data. So if you're mildly close, this will become monstrously punishable on block. And even from a distance, depending on the character, might be punishable on block as well, right? So you gotta space it, you gotta earn it. It's still incredibly strong and still good, you know, basically safe from the distances you would want to throw it at to kind of trigger the time slow effect. But now that it just has more recovery, that means you're more susceptible to getting jumped on. If you poorly space it, you're more susceptible to being punished at all. So it's still a great move, jump or grounded, but they're curtailing its strength just a little bit. Here we are back in the older build. So after a forward throw in the older build, you can do S2 super and do like the chrono break right away, get a wall bounce, get a full combo. And well, that don't work no more. To be fair, it was kind of frame perfect, but still it existed, right? So now there's basically 2 more frames of recovery before you can do anything. So that combo just doesn't work no more. And here we are again back in the old build. So before Ekko, if he had his S2 super up, he could time rewind his wake up attack, which basically removed all the potential risk out of doing a wake up attack, right? So now, if you happen to have your S2 super up and you get knocked down, it goes away. Done. Like, they're not going to let you rewind your own wake up invincible attack, right? That's a bit much. And controller breaking fury if you got hit by it. So Ekko's still Ekko. He's still a little silly, but some of the rougher edges around him have been polished a little bit. Illai's sort of like Darius. They're mostly happy with what she's at the moment. But just a few things. Quality of life buff. The S1 tentacle attack just had its hitbox increased just so it won't miss. Hey, that's nice. Charge heavy, the down heavy specifically, that causes a wall bounce, right? So now the wall bounce happens on the second hit rather than the first one, just so you can get basically more overall damage out of it. Training mode fans, we now have initial tentacles. So we can set them up here, and then when we reset, boom. So if you just want to practice like tentacle setups, you don't have to set them up manually every time. Thank you. And there was one tiny nerf. It doesn't change your combo routing or anything, but down M. So down M is a pretty good button. And we had stand M, and the thing is they're basically the same range, so there's very little reason to do stand M over down M. So down M just got 1 frame slower. It's 11 frames now versus 10 frames. So that there's a point to use stand M, basically. Otherwise, it's still good for all your combos. It's still good for neutral. It's probably what you're going to want to go with most of the time, honestly. But yeah, other than that, that's about it for Illaoi. She's in a good spot. So Jinx, mostly a bit of nerfs. Not like bad nerfs, but definitely nerfs, but some quality of life. So the first part of the patch, when it's already live before the big patch, but so the chain gun can go into rocket now at any point. Before, you had to do the whole chain gun sequence before you go into rocket. Now you don't have to. The big one, though, is Rocket Super. So Rocket Super, on average, has been reduced by 20% damage. It was actually overall the most damaging level 1 super in the game. And now it's a bit more in line with like kind of how everything else works. Because it is really good, right? Because while they're being set up there, like she can now begin to like set up shop and set up her traps while they're being stuck in the super, which just makes her game plan already more dominant. So letting her do that on top of getting all the damage... it was just all too much all at once, right? So now it's a bit more in line. Also, one which I remember abusing in the betas. So Flame Chompers, between the part where like it hits and then attach, there was a small gap. You could actually throw them in between them. They have removed that. So basically, when it hits to when it attaches, it's like basically all true block string now. So you cannot just throw them in between, which fair enough. And speaking of the throw, so here we are looking at the older build. Jinx had maybe the best forward throw in the game mid-screen because she could get a full combo off of it. Like she would basically like be like Blitzcrank. Like her forward throw might as well have been a command grab basically. So now the amount of advantage you get off the throw is no longer the same. So now there's just more overall recovery. So that means cannot do the super jump and the down rocket right away. Because before, like that, I would connect, right? But since there's more recovery for me as the player, that just doesn't work the same way. Now, it's not to say it's ruined, because you still have enough time just like run up, do the regular OTG and like pop them a little bit, and get some very respectable mid-screen damage off a throw. And if you're looking to burn a little meter on it, like it will absolutely let you. So like this can hurt. Like that's not nothing. That can kill a character, right? Especially once again, mid-screen. So I think, you know, taking away the full extended combo, that's perfectly fair. Jinx, you shouldn't be worried for your life that you just got thrown like she's Blitzcrank or something. Perfectly reasonable nerf. Now, another nerf is combos after you use the beam super are going to be significantly shorter. So here's an example of the Illaoi, and you can see I can just kind of pop them and just kind of use some usual combo flare, right? Same idea in the current build. Is just not happening. Like either they'll flip out beforehand, or if I can get them low enough, they'll flip out before I can get the second hit. Like it will just not let you do extended combos the same way afterwards, because their idea was just tagging in, doing it, and like if you get the hit, there was too much reward there. Jinx offered too little, just a bar, roll some dice, and if you get it, you potentially like win the game. And once again, fair enough. Like if you do random full screen beam, generally the reward in and of itself should be just haha gotcha, right? Versus like extended full combo for like 500 plus. And now it doesn't do that. So you can still get a hit or two. So in this scenario here, if I did the thing and happened to catch you, it's not that I got no reward. Because like I could do something, no guaranteed, like a wall bounce and a super. Like I guess I'll make it hurt, but like I don't just get ABC combo go from there. Once again, I think fair enough. Jinx is meant to be annoying. She's meant to be strong. I think she's annoying and strong. But once again, just like Ekko, some of the rough edges kind of smoothed out a bit. Vi is mostly just like consistency, quality of life, and bug fixes. They made it so they changed her, at least the wording on the patches. It'll make stuff easier for like air combos. The only real thing to note is her baby easy combos were like doing as much damage as like her cool combos, and they're reshuffling the damage. So stuff like Wallbreaker, that's just regular S1, right? Now does slightly less damage. And all charged follow-ups off her dash now do more damage. So basically, if you're doing the combos with the cool fancy stuff, you're going to do more damage on average. And if you're doing the easy combos, well, you'll just do ever so slightly less damage. And I think, given that, you know, like the charge mechanic and like landing these like ideally more difficult combos, which I suck at, as part of the attraction, I think that's perfectly fair. Now Yasuo, the golden boy, the chosen one. He's been nerfed. Don't confuse it for nothing else. He's still basically the best character in the game, but if we say he's nerfed, then, you know, it makes people feel better, right? So some things like the LL Infinite, those are just fixed, so don't worry about that. So let's go through some of these here. So down heavy in the air, it's basically been tweaked here. Hit stun has been decreased late in the combos because his combos are too long, and don't worry, they'll still be too long, but at least they won't be too long because of this move specifically. He'll find something else. Wind Wall! This is part of his zoning kit. So Wind Wall has slightly more recovery. So it used to be 29 frames of recovery, now it's 33. So it's 4 frames more of recovery overall. Like, it'll still do the thing and all that, but it's ever so slightly slows him down. Did you know that his lights were plus on block before? I didn't. So now they're not plus on block. And much the same here, down light is now -2. It used to be completely neutral on block. So just curtailing the offense just a little bit. Stand medium has 2 more frames of recovery, and this does affect the block frame data. So it's now -8 from -6 previously. Steel Tempest, this is his big long poke here, now is increased in recovery. So it is now 29 frames of recovery. Used to be 21. And this does affect both versions of the move. So once again here, just curtailing his full screen stuff just a little bit. That means if he's going for the big home run swing, he'll be just that much more able to get jumped in on if you call it out. And here you are looking at the older build. So before, he was only -2 no matter where he got blocked. So here we are back in the current build, and now thanks to the additional recovery, that means it's going to be -12. And if he does the Wind Wall version, that's also going to be more negative, -9. So in most situations, you're still not going to be able to do anything about it, but at least it's less his turn. Like, you'll be able to do something more aggressive after you block it. Also, if you manage to make the opponent block air S1, S2, it is now significantly more negative on block, as it should be. And of course, there's a bunch of bug fixes as well. Please check the associated patch notes linked in the video description for the rest. But yeah, so just like some of the other characters that are a little overwhelming, Yasuo, a bit of the edge taken off. So overall, in my opinion, good patch. Good patch. Like, are Yasuo and Ekko still kind of better than everyone else? In my opinion anyways, yes. But, you know, they realize and recognize the fact at least, okay, maybe we should tone them down just a little bit. Does Braum need further to go to become as viable as the other characters? Probably, but he's going in a good direction. Right, so this is still the early days. We're technically not even out yet, at least not 1.0. So as the first like proper balance patch for the game, I think this is a good spot. And given that, compared to at least other modern fighting games, balance patches are probably going to be a lot more common and a lot more often in 2XKO compared to say like a Street Fighter or a Tekken. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this. We're still in the very early days of how everything's going. Riot says they want this game to be around 10 years from now, right? So probably quite a few more patches between now and then. So it's interesting to see how it's all gonna go. But overall, as far as like, you know, me being patch guy, I'll give this patch a thumbs up. Like, it's not gonna radically shift everything, but it's a good step forward for the game and moves the game forward in a positive direction, at least in my opinion. That said, I would love to know what you think about the patch as a whole. Post in the comments below, and well, that is it for the video. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some 2XKO.